Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into something pretty wild. How just one single mistranslated Greek word may have completely reshaped one of the most basic beliefs about marriage and divorce for millions of people.
I mean, you've heard this a million times, right? For many people, this is just a given. It's seen as a clear, scriptural exception, a green light for ending a marriage if a spouse is unfaithful. It seems so black and white.
But what if that's just not true? What if that whole belief is built on a massive mistranslation? Our source material for this explainer makes a really bold claim that this entire doctrine, this idea that's been around for centuries, it all hangs on one single misunderstood word.
All right, so our investigation starts right here with this one Greek word, porneia. You'll find it in super important passages like Matthew 19:9, where Yeshua is laying out the rules for divorce. This is it. This is the word that creates that famous exception clause.
So, if you grab a modern Bible off your shelf, you're going to see porneia translated as things like sexual immorality or fornication, maybe marital unfaithfulness. But here's the thing. The source material we're looking at says these translations aren't just a little off. They're catastrophically wrong. They completely wipe out the original super specific legal meaning.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we can't just stop with the Greek. It's like finding a clue in one language that's actually pointing back to another. We have to go back to the languages Yeshua actually spoke and taught in, Hebrew and Aramaic, because in this case, context is literally everything.
So in Hebrew, the word we're looking for is zimah. And get this, it has nothing to do with cheating. Zimah is about a union that was forbidden by Torah law right from the get-go. We're talking about a marriage that was never supposed to happen, one that was invalid from day one.
And it's not just a one-off. In Aramaic, you find the word zanuta, and it has the exact same legal punch. Again, this isn't some vague idea of being immoral. It's a specific legal term for a forbidden union.
So what are we talking about when we say unlawful union? Well, the source material points us straight to Leviticus 18. This is where the law lays out exactly what's forbidden. Things like incestuous relationships, unions with close relatives. The key takeaway here is how incredibly precise this is. This isn't about what you do inside a valid marriage. It's about whether the marriage was legitimate to begin with.
And this right here is probably the most important piece of the puzzle. It all comes down to the deliberate choice of one word over another.
Okay, look at this. This is the smoking gun. The Greek language had a perfect, crystal-clear word for adultery, moikeia. But Yahusha didn't use it. He chose porneia instead, which, to his audience, would have carried all that legal weight from the Hebrew word zimah, an unlawful union. The argument is that this wasn't an accident. It was a very deliberate, very significant choice.
So let's be super clear. These two words are not interchangeable, not even close. One is about the legitimacy of the marriage contract itself. The other is about infidelity inside a legitimate contract. They are two totally different legal concepts.
All right, so if the original meaning was so precise, how on earth did we get to where we are today? How did a specific legal term for an unlawful union morph into this vague catch-all phrase for sexual immorality?
Well, the source material suggests it's like a game of telephone played over centuries. When porneia was used in a Jewish context, the audience got it. They understood the legal baggage it carried from Hebrew law. But as the scriptures were translated and moved into new cultures, the translators, who didn't have that deep Hebrew legal background, lost the plot. They swapped out the precise legal term for a general moral one.
In that one, seemingly small change, it had massive, doctrine-shaping consequences. Suddenly, a new idea was born from this mistranslation. Hey, if my spouse cheats on me, I have a biblical out. I can divorce and get remarried. It's a loophole that, according to this analysis, simply wasn't there in the original.
Okay, so let's play this out. What happens if we hit the reset button and restore the original meaning? If porneia goes back to meaning unlawful union instead of adultery, how does that change, well, everything? According to this source material, you end up with two completely separate tracks. On one track, you have a valid marriage. That's a covenant for life, and it only ends when one person dies, period. On the other track, you have an unlawful union, a porneia situation. That was never a real, valid covenant in the first place, so it has to be dissolved. They're two different things with two totally different rules.
You see how this just flips the entire modern interpretation on its head? The so-called exception for divorce isn't about cheating inside the marriage, it's about whether the marriage was even legitimate from the start. In this view, adultery is, of course, a huge sin, but it doesn't break the actual covenant bond itself.
You know, this whole deep dive into porneia just goes to show how incredibly important language and context are. It really makes you think, doesn't it? It leaves us with a pretty provocative question to chew on. If a single word, this important, could have its meaning twisted over time, what else might we be missing? What other truths are just hiding in plain sight, buried under centuries of translation?